Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're listening in from today. My name is Matt Solomon. I'm a co-host of this podcast live stream. With me, as always, Kevin Lancaster. How's it going, Kevin?
Hopefully it's going okay with this broadcast and stream and this shoddy internet. But other than that, it's going well. It's going well, Mr. Solomon.
Well, you've got your globe there, so that's a new feature that I see. So that's spicing it up a little bit on the
Yeah,
set.
my sophisticated studio here. Yeah, got props and everything.
There you go. There you go. So, just a little bit of housekeeping. If you are listening in, of course, we always love for you to comment, let us know where you're listening in from. We definitely know and think that this is more fun, I think, for us and certainly for you all if you participate in the conversation. It takes us in totally different directions than we originally planned sometimes, which is fun. And we even get ideas for topics to have. And I think one of those, is those topics today. Kevin, you look like you want to chime in.
Yeah, well, no, the whole point of this show, and as we get our production quality better, and we start to actually bring on guests here in the next couple of weeks. The whole point, though, is to make it interactive and answer questions and just solicit feedback, because that's always fun. But yeah, this topic came to, I guess, both of us different, couple different I guess iterations or ways. It was brought up by a person that chimed in on one of the previous episodes, and then when I was running the other day, it's like, how do we combine that request or that topic with improvement? So improving just a little bit every day, improving 1%, getting 1% better every day at something. And so we figured we'd meld these two topics together, come up with this one topic, and then see what type of feedback and questions the audience has, and go from there.
Absolutely. So, and just want to give a shout out to Jess, who was tuning in from San Diego. So we appreciate that. Thank you for listening. And again, to the point, and I know this is a new time today for us. And we will absolutely get to a better scheduled time and more consistency. But it goes to the thing we often talk about with whether it's partners or really anybody that's getting into this stuff. You got to just get it out there in the beginning. It's not going to be perfect. I know we're going to go back and look at this stuff and see some of the lessons learned. But just to kind of, I guess, get things started. Kind of the theme you talked about, but I'll kind of read the original title of this, which is how doing things 1% better every day leads to success. And so this week, we're going to start with marketing. And again, it came from a person who was watching, and it said, talked about the art of marketing to both customers and prospects effectively. And now that is a massive topic on both sides. And so I think we'll dive a little bit into both. But I think, I know we wanted to hit home on some of the customer marketing as well, because there's so much missed opportunity. And I even have some stats that I'll pull out later. I was doing some research on the topic. Is some really compelling stats on why you need to spend a lot more time and money investing in your own current customers.
Yeah, it's a very tricky topic, and it's also a topic that is relative to the maturity of the business. Whether you're an MSP or a vendor, your sales velocity may be different, and it probably is different. Early startup, early stage, even to merging, it's all about the new customer acquisition and figuring out how do you effectively acquire new customers, create velocity, and more importantly, just effectively, how do you cost effectively do that? On the other end of the spectrum with the more mature organization, so maturing to mature, it's about how do you become more effective at cross-selling and retaining and cross-selling your existing customers. And so those are, we talked about in maybe a couple episodes back, about looking at your customer acquisition costs and looking at, the difference between new customer acquisition costs and current customer acquisition costs and what it takes to upsell and cross sell your existing customers. And often it's dramatically different. You hear the adage out there, it's turned around quite often, but it's always, more cost effective to retain or grow an existing customer than it is acquire a new customer. And in 99% of the case, that is very much a true statement. And so I think when we get into this, we have to, I think about in which, filter you're looking at this challenge. Is your challenge both new customer acquisition and growing revenue with existing customers, or is it just you're mature and it's all about growing revenue with existing customers? And so I think you have to think about, this topic as it relates to, where you are in your maturity as an organization.
Yeah, and look, there's some differing stats, but in general, I would say the theme that I came across was that it's acquiring new customers is about 5 times the investment from a dollar standpoint, and just really interesting. Talk about like success rate, and of course, it's going to vary depending on what you're selling, but it talked about for acquiring new customers, your success rate is anywhere from 5 to 20% on average. Again, that's going to completely vary depending on your services, but selling to a customer, the success rate is 60 to 70%. So, that those are pretty strong numbers on the customer side. But again, I know that it really goes back to what stage of maturity you're at. But very, very compelling for the vendors or the MSPs that have established business at this point and have maybe missed out on opportunities to sell to their own customer base.
Yeah, again, these topics often, produce several, many downstream topics when it gets into the area of customer marketing and cross-selling and building out stacks. But if you take it from an MSP standpoint, let's say we're talking about a maturing or a mature MSP that's got dozens of customers, and they've provided kind of the basic MSP framework or toolkit of solutions, but they're looking to go to more of an MSSP model or provide more of an advanced solution. One of the main challenges today is understanding your kit cost and what it takes, what the market's looking for, and how you can effectively sell those solutions. And so I think when looking at the cross sell and upselling of your current customers, that those are things that you start with, right? What does my kit look like? And trying to be somewhat forward looking, understanding what technology solutions are coming down the pike, and then obviously you understand what the competitors down the street are doing as far as their security stack. But then you get into that, how do I position this? How do I create messaging that resonates to my existing customer? Because there's a lot of hesitancy, especially in MSSP space, to add additional costs into your stack and try to pass that additional cost along to your customers. Some organizations choose to, they'll eat that cost, or they'll embed that cost into their existing platform, and it doesn't do great things for the margins. Some are very progressive and they figure out how to market and how to convert these more sophisticated security solutions to their existing customer set. So this is a topic that often generates a lot more discussion in a broad range of areas. But getting back to the theme of the day is doing things 1% better. And what I've seen over the years, and specifically for the last several months that I've been working with a number of MSPs, a number of vendors, is that the message, we kind of start with the message, right? The message is often convoluted, the sales message, right? Many organizations suffer from a lack of resource and lack of staff or talent on their team to be able to bifurcate their sales messages and target effectively, right? So target new customers and target existing customers and with different messaging and different conversions. And so, that's a challenge, but that gets into doing that, doing something 1% better. And I think one of the challenges that we should throw out there to everybody listening is that, take a survey or take an assessment internally. how effective or how concise or clear is your marketing message to new customers versus your existing customers, right? Are you saying the same thing to both audiences, or are you saying, do you have it dialed in, or is it slightly different? Is it drastically different? Are your business drivers and what's going to really resonate with an MSP customer? Are those different between your new customer acquisition and your existing customer acquisition? So that's I think one of the first challenges, right? You do that assessment internally, understand what messaging are you putting out there, right? Is it different? Is it tailored to those two different audiences? Because they're going to react, two different ways.
Right. Yeah, so Kevin, I want to interject because you brought up the MSSP thing, which so you ended up taking it in a completely different direction, and we're getting comments. So I do want to, because I want to make sure we're answering some of the questions that came up. And look, we love Shiva. We love you always come in challenging us. I want to throw up a couple of these because they're all related to the MSSP conversation you just brought up. So Shiva kind of opened it up. Do you think most MSPs are capable of being an MSSP? Lots more documentation, SOPs needed to buy those shiny tools. Jessica also mentioned what suggestions you have for MSSPs with current customers who are not comfortable with an existing vendor the MSSP is using due to a vendor data breach. And then Eric kind of also chimed in on this same topic area, thinking, I think MSPs should be separate than MSSPs, much like a general practitioner. So, I'll give a quick comment, and Kevin, it's probably more of your area of expertise, and I know we're now gone to a different direction, but you brought it up, so we want to make sure we feed the people what they've asked. I think with, at least speaking with MSSPs, like real MSSPs, I think the biggest takeaway for me has been MSPs need to be security centric. They do not need to become MSSPs. And there's a lot of complexities. There's a lot of costs that I think a lot of MSPs don't actually understand right off the bat when they're just thinking about making that transition. There's certifications. There's a lot of training that goes into it. It's basically having a separate business essentially. So lots of considerations that go into it. I generally am based on the conversations I've had, unless you are really savvy in security and are going to try to go in that direction, an MSSP is much better off, or MSP is much better off teaming with an MSSP. Kevin, your thoughts around that topic?
I'm going to disagree with you completely.
Really?
Yeah. No, I know.
Okay.
Well, not completely, but completely. So what I'll say, absolutely, not every MSP should or can be an MSSP, right? And that is just the reality of the situation. Fortunately, there are some great smart sourcing, opportunities out there. There are some great organizations that have created these MSSP umbrella models that provide that layer of, the security layer. I would say though, because this is more speaking maybe to the early stage MSPs, you could start an MSP 10 years ago and slowly move into security, right? We had security threats and vulnerabilities and all that stuff 10 years ago, but the severity, the complexity, the speed at which they moved back then were not nearly as complex as they are today. So starting an MSP today, I think one needs to give pause to whether it really honestly makes sense to go down that path, because you almost have to be a security practitioner these days just to start an MSP. And so, yeah, so I agree with you in that MSPs should, if they don't have the capability, if they don't have the staff, they don't have the talent, the insight, then yeah, they should find ways to partner with some of these great managed security service providers out there. But in general, I would say, yeah, today, if you're starting an MSP and if you're not security first, you're gonna have an awfully steep, one learning curve, and it's gonna be awfully expensive to get to velocity because how important security is today. And you're gonna see, you've seen price points, starting to come to the center, because in 2 or 3 years ago, you had really interesting MSSP platforms that were starting to emerge and become collaborative and user friendly, but the price points were off the charts. And so an MSP they couldn't go to their customer and say, hey, now I got to charge you another $50 or $100 per user per month. Fortunately, with these models, that price point's coming down, and because security is what it is today, and threats and vulnerabilities are so pervasive, that I think the MSPs have a better shot in justifying the expense. And there's ways to do that. And again, it's probably a whole nother show, but I think if you're starting an MSP today, if you're not thinking security first, if you're just thinking, O365 licensing and backup, then unfortunately that's the wrong mindset. And that's why you're seeing some of these ones, it's hard for them to scale. And it was extremely hard for them to scale during the pandemic because, they just got outmaneuvered by the organizations that were savvy, sophisticated, and those are obviously the ones that are being acquired these days as well. So, so I agree, but disagree to an extent.
Fair. I mean, we're not here to always agree. And actually, I'm torn on the next one with Eric. What he's asking: do you think an MSP can call themselves an MSSP just because they've partnered with an MSSP firm? So they're offering those services, and that gets into, I guess, a little bit of a battle of are you white labeling the services, which some MSPs are prefer, right? They don't necessarily want to say that, hey, we're outsourcing this element. Other MSPs are very comfortable saying, hey, you need this extra layer of security. We don't do that here, but we partnered. So I'm a little torn on as to whether somebody should I'd probably said they shouldn't identify, but I understand why, if you're white labeling the services, you might want to identify that way. Do you have any thoughts on that, Kevin?
Yeah, in fact, I was speaking with somebody last week where this very scenario came up. My response is, and I think what you look for in an MSP provider or platform is one that provides a ton of education, right? It's not just, hey, sign up for our SOC, sign up for our alerting, our monitoring, right? It's sign up and, go through this 1 week course, 2 week course at minimum to understand what this means. And it's, it's a challenge to commit that, amount of time, but yeah, if you're going to call yourself an MSSP, right, and it's just handing off the football, completely outsourcing it, then that's a challenge, right? You get challenge in not necessarily liability, potentially in kind of the liability space, but if I'm your competitor down the street and I understand that's what you're doing, and I can still talk circles around you when it comes to security, then that's going to be something I'm going to sell against all day long. But I think it really comes down to picking the right MSSP partner that provides that education, provides that knowledge. It's not just, all right, hey, we signed up, we got you integrated into our dashboarding, and we'll just run the alerts. I think doing that is okay, but I wouldn't go out there and hang my shingle and say I'm an MSSP if I'm 100% reliant on another organization.
Yeah, and I think Eric followed it up, and I think I would say that's probably getting legal advice would probably be the smartest option if you're debating about this, because of the potential issues with a breach and whatever the legalities your state has around that. So
absolutely. I mean, that's that reliance on not false statements, but yeah, you're putting yourself out there as a security expert, and then you're having to pass the baton. And if you're unable to speak to incident, then yeah, that's certainly a concern, for sure. So good point.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, so we have gone like a way left field on this one, this topic, but we appreciate people commenting, and we want to go in the direction where people are asking questions. Although technically, you brought up this whole debate, Kevin, so you started it.
Maybe, but it's just not to keep me focused or keep us back on track. Yeah.
Well, I just want to go back to like this idea, the customer marketing, because I think it's a challenge everybody has to deal with, and not just for upsell. I mean, there's the upsell capabilities, but it's also about retention. Keeping partners from churning, making sure they're actually educated on all of your services that you're coming out with. think about, I think marketing numbers will tell you that when you send an email, and I'm sure there's exceptions, but when you send an email to even your own customers, 20, maybe on a great day, 30% of those are being opened and looked at, which means 70%, 60% of your customers aren't getting the message, which in some cases are big product updates and things like that. And so that's a challenge every type of really organization deals with. And I guess part of the conversation we want to have today is like, how does that evolve? There's some best practices out there that we've heard. I kind of marked down a couple things that I was doing for research, but that's a real issue. I would say that, we would come out with, let's say when we came out with Bullfish, which was a huge product launch, if only 50% of the audience knows about your next big launch, that's a huge problem.
Yeah. Yeah, look, and that challenge is becoming and it's becoming a bigger and bigger challenge every day. Everyone's drowning in noise in their inbox, and deliverability and canned spam and all these things impacting your ability to effectively get back in front of your customers. And so, yeah, you talk about delivery rates, but then you got to really look in click-through rates, right? So yeah, it's delivered, it might hit the inbox. With these filters these days, are you getting truly accurate numbers as far as how many people the delivery and opens and click-throughs and stuff like that? So yeah, it's a big challenge, and I think that's one of the hardest parts about doing that 1%, right? It's making sure you have the right message, but how do you ensure that your customers are seeing it? And that's something that we spent a lot of time thinking through. How do we take just a basic product update? How do we take the fact that we put in 10 new documents this week or this month into our platform that would help our partners sell? How do we get that out there more effectively? And I think it starts with the initial communication once you sign up a partner. And I think that's where a lot of vendors fail, the MSPs, right? It's all about acquiring the MSP as a partner. Maybe there's some onboarding, maybe there's some training, but then it's like crickets, and every vendor is guilty of this, right? All right, we got them up and running, or hey, they signed, and on to the next one. And so I think the deliverability challenges, I think the engagement challenges with the existing customers is solved during onboarding, during the onboarding experience, the communication right after onboarding, and not just the frequency, but the quality of the communication. It's not that you're trying to sell your upsell, cross-sell your MSP, or the MSP is trying to cross-sell, upsell their existing customer day one. This is, we always talk about, or often talk about, the fact that this is a team sport, right? It's a team sport between the MSPs and their vendors, and it's a team sport between the customers and the MSPs. And I think you get better engagement. I think you get, the desire or wanting to engage during that onboarding process. That sets the tone for the rest of the relationship.
Yeah, and look, I think you can actually ask your customer too. What's the best way to engage? Like straight up, hey, if we come out with a new product update, what's going to be the best way to reach you so that we make sure you know about it? Is it phone call? Is it a text? Is it an email? I don't think everybody does a lot of, I'm not saying like you should spend your time making phone calls to every one of your customers, but if they actually told you, hey, call me when there's a huge product update, maybe it's worth spending a little time, because if that's going to be what gets them to see it, then that's important. And I want to dive in a couple areas here. Shiva mentioned, what do you think is the best method of engagement? I don't think there's one single method. I think it encompasses a lot of these things that we're talking about. I think, Kevin, you made a great point of like, it's those beginning stages of the onboarding where it all starts. Like I said, asking the right questions, but being engaged with the customer very early on, obviously, to get some quick wins. And that could be very different things. It could just be participating on a webinar with them. It depends on your business model. But when I say that doing those quick wins early on basically will end up allowing you to have more evangelists early on. And when people are evangelists of a product, they're much more likely to pay attention to messages that are being sent out there. And I would say that, the other thing is it's a multi-touch thing. I think I'm focusing on product update, but like if you're putting out a product update, it can't just be an email.
Yeah.
We later evolved. At first, we were just doing an email. Then we later evolved to an alert inside of our platform. And so there's different ways. Then I started putting out a product update video on LinkedIn and in Facebook. So we tried to put it out to wherever our customers could potentially be. We tried to put it out there, and guess what? The best part about like putting out a product update where you're technically talking to your customers, prospects are going to see it too. So they're going to hear about the product update. And so you're sort of selling in a way, but you're really educating your customers first and foremost. So I don't think there's one best method. I think I think it has to evolve into a multi-touch engagement.
No, you're absolutely right. Multi-touch, multi-channel, right? Some more innovative ones here recently have created Facebook groups. They've created LinkedIn groups. It's multi-channel. So they're sending out emails. They're putting alerts into their platform. They're out there on LinkedIn. They're out there on Facebook. It's a slippery slope. So you got to tread lightly. But they also have evangelists, right? We were fortunate. We were so blessed and fortunate to have a great partner advisory board where when we put things out, they would reshare it, right? And so it actually magnified our reach, not just to our existing partners, but to your point, to prospects, because they were such, they believed in what we were doing, to that point where they would reshare it within their communities. And I know that's a big thing within the peer groups and stuff like that, but it's all about multi-channel. And, it's, I think that's the most concise way to say it, right? It's multi-channel and figuring out how they want to be engaged with, not just how you prefer to engage.
Yeah, and I think one mistake a vendor or an MSP or whoever could make is depending on whoever the person who might be the most forward-facing employee to make that message to everybody. So like myself at iAgent, maybe somebody saw me put that out, and other employees maybe didn't also put the message out, but they really should, because we're all connected to different people. I may have dealt with the MSP owner initially on the onboarding, but whoever did the onboarding at iAgent may have dealt with a completely different person and who might not be in my network of connections. So I think it's important that we get buy-in on important messages. Everybody's really talking about that, to their network, because we're all connected to different people.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this really evolves over the next couple of years, because there is there's the, I don't know, maybe the adage, but the younger folks these days say, oh, my parents, they're on Facebook, I'm not going on Facebook. I think LinkedIn still is universally accepted as the business platform to be on, but you're seeing some really interesting things coming out of TikTok, right? I mean, again, there's debates on whether certain groups should be using TikTok or not, and security, privacy, and all that stuff. But now you have the ability to transact inside of TikTok, and so maybe if you're a progressive technology vendor, and maybe that's an area to explore. It's probably a little premature now. I don't think TikTok is generally used for business applications, but or at least B2B. But that might be something to look at downstream. Certainly Instagram and different platforms. The younger audiences that are now starting to get into the workforce, they've grown up on those platforms. That's how they prefer to interact, engage, and at some point, we're gonna have to start looking at those platforms as how we engage with potential customers, just because that's where they spend their time. And so those a couple of those are examples I think are early stage, but they're not too far out there for us to start thinking about.
Well, yeah, I mean, because you look at Facebook, I mean, it originally was the college like it was a college thing, and that's what everybody associated to it. And then obviously that evolved. So if you learned Facebook early on, you may have had advantages from a business perspective, because it's all about like where your customer base could end up, right, in the future. Because regardless of whether I ever wanted to mix Facebook personal with business, I didn't really have a choice. MSPs are all over Facebook. They're all over LinkedIn as well. But like I had to shift that area. We've got a whole nother generation of new ownership, new salespeople coming into the space that have grown up on TikTok potentially, over the last couple of years. So, I do think like it's a way to continuing to evolve, but you have to be where your customers are. I mean, that's essentially, again, when you think about the multi-touch, putting out a product update on Reddit would have probably a few years ago, I probably wouldn't have thought of it to do it. I don't think we ever did it, but I know other vendors do, right? And they're on Discord. So you do have to go where your customers are, or where people of that customer could be. And people are in different areas. An owner might be on Facebook and an engineer might be on just Discord, depending on the profile. So really having an understanding of the, who needs to hear about, the message that you've got. So I know we've kind of jumped around between the 1% everyday thing and MSSP talk. I don't know, any other areas, Kevin, that you wanted to cover today?
No, I think that's it. I think the challenge, like I said earlier, is you figure out, that one thing you're going to do today that's different. How are you going to improve your communications to your existing customers and to your new customers? How do you bifurcate that? It's hard. Everyone's moving at the speed of business, and sometimes we're under resourced. But if you can block out 2 hours, 3 hours, and really start to dial in your messaging between those two audiences, that should be the challenge for the day. Is take 2 hours and do an assessment of your materials. And I guarantee you, a large percentage of the MSPs that are maybe listening or watching, a significant percentage, their marketing materials are one. There's no difference, and they're shooting themselves in the foot in their ability to grow their revenue with the existing customers. And so take that time, take 2 hours, some point this weekend, and do that assessment and see what you could be doing better. It's just that 1%. What's that 1% improvement that you can do today, tomorrow, the next day, to make your marketing, your sales that much better?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and now Brent's got me fired up. So he said you should be where your customers are, but you shouldn't meet them. Every LinkedIn contact, the first contact is buy for me. So Brent, thanks for listening. So this is the most common thing I hear all the time, and it's one of the reasons people are turned off by LinkedIn. Now I want to put a couple things on this. So number one, LinkedIn fairly recently lowered the number of connections that people can put out per week or per day. So now you can only put out 100 requests per week. Before it was like 100 a day. So you could do 700 in a week, which is a lot. Most people, I think if you look at the reports, 75% of B2B transactions include people doing research ahead of time, which includes LinkedIn, before they make any buying decision. So we know the customers are on LinkedIn. The big mistake that people make, and this is what turns a lot of people off, is that there are a lot of salespeople who are unfortunately use it the wrong way, which is they connect with you and they do the buy thing right away. They get, let me set up a demo now that we've connected. Those people generally are doing it. I mean, we know we're doing it wrong. What I would say is that when, let's say 80% of people are doing it wrong, but that means only 20% are doing it right, and it's probably even a better number than that. To me, that makes you stand out. So if you're, Brent, I know you're an MSP. So if you're an MSP and you actually do it the correct way, you will stand out among everybody else. And it's the same when it goes to that 1% of LinkedIn users are consistently populating or posting data or posting on a consistent basis. So only 1%. So again, I don't look at it like, oh, no one's posting. I look at it as like, oh, this is a huge opportunity, because if I'm in the 1% that are actually putting out, relevant things and putting out value, I'm going to stand out among the crowd. So I definitely know everything you're talking about, Brent, but I think there's a way to really stand out and do it the right way. And so I wouldn't let the people who are doing it wrong, take you off of LinkedIn, which I know you're not, because you're on here. So you're listening on LinkedIn. I don't know, Kevin, do you have any feeling? Because I know you get, I mean, as a CEO of many businesses, you've gotten a million requests.
Yeah, every day. It's, what annoys me is now, the automated bots where it's, hey, we should be friends, or hey, I know we're in the same group, or that's just annoying. No, like it's just like any interaction, right? It's, you meet somebody at an event, you meet them at a dinner or something like that. The first thing they do is they start selling you. I mean, your first impression is like, hit the road. And so, yeah, absolutely. It's got to be careful about how you interact. And I think LinkedIn was probably reacting to that that issue, right? Where they just had these automated bots that, were allowing you to connect with hundreds and hundreds of people, and it was gumming up the system, right? And they were not quality contacts, not quality connections. And so, yeah, I completely agree with you. Sounds like Channel Halo has some type of LinkedIn course people should take. I don't know.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
No, but I get passionate about it because I do, I've had so much success interacting with people through LinkedIn, private, once you're connected and you have messages, but when it's just a value relationship, essentially, I don't know that I've ever really asked somebody for a sale. I let them, it just kind of happens naturally. If they watch a video and they've trusted me for a while, they would have reached out and said, hey, I'd like to actually check out your product now. I think that's where LinkedIn obviously is more for. But I just wouldn't let it discourage the people. Again, if the 99% are doing it wrong and the 1% are doing it right, be that 1% and stand out, because LinkedIn's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. It's again, one of the few places still, and hopefully it stays this way, where you don't have to have a huge network, but you put out messages, it can go out to anybody in theory. Like a message could hit and it could become viral, and viral could mean different things to you. It could be 1,000 views, it could be 10,000 views, but it's just a massive opportunity in order to get the word out on some of the things you're doing.
There might be a new platform coming out at some point. Yeah, but yeah, maybe. I don't know. I heard something about something, but go on.
Well, I guess that'll have to be we'll have to hear more about that, Kevin, at a later date, I'm guessing.
At a later date.
Anything? So, Kevin, we're actually, I mean, it's not too late technically to register, by the way. We're going to both be at Build It next week. I'm pretty excited. It's been a while since I've been at an event. I think it's probably been a really long time for you.
No, I've set a couple of them this spring. So okay. I think I got you beat. No, you've been to one, right? You were at one not too long ago.
I was at one. If anybody wants to join us in Jersey City next week, I have some discount codes available, so you can reach out to me directly. We definitely want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Mail Protector. We always appreciate their support. If you're interested in their product, very easy, you can look them up. So thank you to Mail Protector for being a supporter of us. I saw they actually just did a really cool, it's become a pretty popular thing where, so Mail Protector does, kind of like a steak dinner, and they bring some local MSPs, so a regionally based event. And that seems to be kind of a popular thing among vendors recently. I think kind of in the sense of like, because it was harder to do large gatherings. So a lot of people have been doing that. That's all they just did that in Tulsa, I believe. So
very cool. Yeah, no, that's I guess the Build It is Sunday through Wednesday, something like that.
Yeah, technically Monday through Wednesday, but I will be coming in on Sunday. And then finally, again, we just again appreciate all the support for people who've been listening in, but we would love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm making it easy. Sorry, I covered both of us, Kevin. But there's a QR code. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. You do that and hit the subscribe button on YouTube. And I think we've got. I know we've been saying it for a couple weeks now, but I think we're starting to really flush out where we want to go with this, and we are gonna have some really exciting guests coming up. And so I would just say we appreciate everybody, joining us and supporting us through the early stages and growing pains of this stream.
Yeah, definitely some pains, but we're learning. We're getting better at it. That it's going to be exciting quarter coming up. It's going to be exciting with some of these events. Hopefully, some of the big events that are still out in the horizon, the Kaseya Connects, the IT Nation, the data events. Hopefully, those big events are still pressing forward. There's a ton of smaller events that are out there that we're gonna try to get out there too and meet all of our fans. We're still on our quest to be top 10 on Spotify. And we probably have 4 million podcasts ahead of us at this point. Actually, we haven't even launched on there yet, so
soon.
Got some work to do. But no, this has been all about trying to figure out what is the right model, what's the right type of content, and just what was it, 5 weeks ago? It was like, on a Wednesday night, it was like, all right, look, let's just do it tomorrow. Let's just start, because we put so much time and effort and energy in debating like whether we do this and what do we call it. And so it was good to get started and start to dial this thing in. But it's going to be exciting with some of the guests and the direction that we take this thing. So stay tuned.
Absolutely. Exactly. And I'll finish it on with Gary's comment, which is pain builds character. There you go. Perfect way to end it. Absolutely. And thanks for listening in, Gary. And again, everybody, thank you. And hope everybody has a great day.
See ya.